Hello, Simone. I am excited to be here with you today. Today we are going to be discussing a bizarre phenomenon where there is, if you look at the county level total fertility rate in the United States, there is an extremely high fertility. I mean, extremely high fertility when you look at the rest of the map. Nothing comes close to the Strip's fertility rate. Strip down basically like where the west side of Texas is, all the way up to the top of the United States.
Yeah, like from the Texas Panhandle up, basically directly up from there is this weird blue strip.
And so, like, obviously I'm going to have a map on screen here that you guys can look at and be like, what is going on here? One of the people who dug into it was friend of the show, Robin Hansen. Because of course, like, if somebody's looking at interesting questions, it's like always going to be one of our like small friend groups. I sometimes wondered, is like not everyone else programmed in this simulation? Like, is it like 20 people who are fully programmed and they're all guests of the show? And then everyone
you got to save processing power. This stuff's expensive. I mean, so yeah, before we go into what he thinks is going on, what are you going to guess? Is it that like these are very low population rural states? I mean, we're looking at North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, a little bit.
There's lots of low population rural states. That would not explain this at all.
Okay.
So I'm going to guess it's either one of two things.
Okay.
Thing number one that it could be is it could be actually a mistake in the data.
Okay.
It could be something about how these are like near a date line or how these are near some line.
And some time zone where it's measured twice because of like
is causing things to be measured twice. That's hypothesis number one. Because it just doesn't seem realistic when I look at other things here. But then I think, okay, like I'm from Texas, right?
Yeah.
These districts do not make sense as to why they would be higher fertility. They are incredibly rural districts.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Rural, and that's where you get those. I mean, it's there's a selection bias there, right? You're getting people who want big families, who are probably more likely to be religious conservative, who have this space, and of course, there's all these prenatalist advocates who are like, it's about space.
This explanation.
Okay.
The districts actually remind me most of places like Arizona or Western California, which is way below these districts in terms of fertility rate.
That's true. Yeah. Why would those not also show up? As
why would those? They're just as conservative. They're just as. So the other thing that it could be is immigration patterns is the other thing I'd hypothesize here.
Interesting.
It could be that if you look at this is, if you're looking at immigration waves moving west, this is where pretty much everyone would stop when hitting the Rockies. So if you're just going to continue to move west until you hit the Rockies immigration wise, that's what would lead to this line. This is the most I wanted to get away from other people and live my own way of all people in the United States make up this line. That could be what we're seeing. And then people could be like, well, what about that like edge of Texas thing? Like that's not the Rockies. And I'd say, well, that's the desert.
Yeah.
So let's have a look here. What is the first thing that he notes here? He says it's really weirdly along the mountain time and central time zone divider.
Yeah, what is up with that? If you overlaid them, it looks so suspicious.
That's why I think it could be a statistical error because, okay, that divider, if you look and I'm comparing them on screen here, goes through the center of South Dakota there. And the line moves from where it is on this map towards the center of South Dakota, which is weird. Why is it doing that?
Yeah.
This to me indicates that it might be some sort of statistical error.
Yes, but then when we scroll down a little bit more, Wyvert, who's so prolific on X, suggests that it's a combination of being rural and high income, showing an American Community Survey of 5-year estimates, showing median household income for counties that are completely rural from 2013 to 2017. And there's also exactly where the fertility strip is, a concentration I actually think above $75,000. So
I think that this graph is hugely misleading. So let's talk about why it's misleading, because there's something you might not be noticing about it, because it draws your eyes in and you're like, oh, okay, this could explain it.
Mm.
But what you're not counting is really almost all of the colored in places on the map at all are in this strip. That's why it looks so green, because it's not looking at the whole of the US, it's only looking at rural counties. And so what we're actually seeing here is, for whatever reason, this strip in the United States has far more consistent rural counties than any other strip in the United States. But then the question is how are rural counties being counted here? Because I know for a fact that these places aren't particularly more rural than, places in Arizona, for example, which is shown as not having a single rural county, or Eastern California, not shown as having a single rural county, or New Mexico, shown as having almost no rural counties.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
that's
I don't buy
weird.
that. There's something about the way this map is structured that I think is trying to prove a point, and I don't know how they fudge the data, but I can tell you there are rural counties in Arizona.
Yes.
Arizona is not a populated place. There's like a few like medium-sized cities in it, but like if I was trying to date in Arizona, I'd be like, but nobody lives in Arizona.
Yeah.
So
Something's off.
something's off about that.
Yeah.
Okay, now Cremu comes in, by the way, which I love. We're getting all the art stars here, Simone. How did you not hear about that?
This is, because I'm not on X. We're so bad at doing, but we have things to do. I don't know how these people can be so productive and yet spend so much time on X. I don't understand. But anyway, yes, Cremu's graph is quite interesting.
I want to be clear, Simone, they are not an ounce as productive as you and I.
Probably.
None of these people have a daily podcast. None of these people are running multiple companies at the same time. None of them are running multiple major efforts
or they don't have, like, I think Robin Hansen has grown kids. Cremu has no kids yet, to my knowledge.
You're pregnant with kid number 5.
Yeah.
We also are regularly in the media. I mean, we were just before this recording in a phone call with, what was it, ABC? USA Today. And then I had another interview this morning. And then yesterday we had a reporter team come over to our house. So our days are being constantly disrupted in spite of all this. No, these people really are shredding their potentiality through their engagement with X. And I think it's bad.
Yeah.
So Cremu says you get a somewhat similar, the Bible Belt, it's gone or has shifted picture with data from the U.S. religious census. And here he's looking to adherence of U.S. religious bodies, adherence as a percentage of the population, very heavy overlap with that line.
Yeah.
This again makes me think it's immigration patterns stopping at the natural barriers to Western immigration. That is what we're actually seeing here. It's the Americans who had the most fire in their heart to keep moving or to take action. And here you see another thing about these districts, right? I actually really like this one by Jeremy Paccio, where he showed that this is the line in America with by far the lowest suicide rate.
Oh, that's so interesting. Wow. And it's such a fascinating map of suicides. Okay, where is it really bad? Nevada. They just want to die. Northern California? What's wrong with you?
So this really divides like the Arizona or Eastern California thing I keep talking about, because both of them have really high suicide rates.
Maine? Why would you ever want to die if you're in Maine? And this whole Pacific Northwest is not looking good there. I don't get
it.
Because
it's a lack of vitalism. A lot of these places are traditional. And I think that this is the thing that people don't get. It's the different American cultural groups which have a different reason to live. This line is a lot of backwoods Americans and a lot of
people with faith, which is really important.
No. There's people with faith in Maine. You overlap this with a map of like faith of the United States, which I can do here.
Going back to the religious Bible Belt, no, Maine is pretty freaking light. And also the Pacific Northwest is actually, if you look at these graphs, actually, so so what's interesting is that religiosity is pretty still high in the South. And yet this suicide rate, you only really see this no kill rate in that fertility strip, and not in the religious South.
Well, that's because the religious South is descendant of Cavalier culture. Like, of course it wouldn't be as vitalistic.
That's really, I guess. So you can't say religiosity predicts lower nihilism or desire to end your life. It is religious vitalism specifically. Like, you keep going on about how like so many Orthodox Christians just seem so depressed.
And I note here what isn't in this for people who aren't looking is Utah. Like, if you want to say this is Mormons, no, Utah is actually like super not in this.
Yeah, man. That's scary.
Not only is it not high in fertility rates, particularly, at the county level at least, it's not in this rural thing. It is in the high religiosity thing. But here's what's really interesting: you go down to suicide rates, super high across Utah.
It's crazy. That's crazy. I would think
I've actually noted this suicide rate thing. Like, if you look at other places with like really low fertility rates, they typically have high suicide rates, like South Korea.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a bigger story about, is humanity good? Is the future bright? Is life good? Or are we intensely focused on suffering, humanity bad, future dark? And then those people both don't have children and their lives at disproportionate rates, apparently.
That's really fascinating.
That is fascinating.
All right, you want to go to the next map? This is my board.
Okay, this is also
This is
so
fascinating,
interesting.
right?
This mystery strip, the mystery strip.
The mystery strip. Aren't you loving the mystery strip?
I'm loving the mystery strip. Oh my
What
goodness.
can we call it that's catchier than mystery strip? America's, what is that? Do they call it like the whatever trail on humans?
The Trail of Tears? The Western
No.
Trail?
On humans, on like the human body. Like
The Linea Negra?
I want to say
That's a line that sometimes shows up on a pregnant woman's belly from her belly button downward.
Oh.
So we can call it the Linea Negra.
The Linea Negra. That's fun. And then people will be like, "That's racist. You said Negra." And I'm like, "What is wrong?"
You've never encountered a pregnant belly before, apparently. Oh goodness. I don't think I get them though. I haven't seen one, but I also just don't spend a lot of time looking at my body, so I wouldn't know.
You don't get them. I would.
Okay, because
I don't think that they're unattractive. Like I've seen them before.
You've seen them, right? Yeah, they're yeah.
I haven't been like, that's unattractive looking. It looks like a type of pregnant belly. So
yeah, just type with the line. I was thinking, by the way, if I get a tattoo, I probably shouldn't. Like, I wouldn't do that for surgeries, but like a zipper on my C-section line would be hilarious.
You can get that after you have your
after all the
surgery. After all this, I actually think that'd be really fun for reporters.
It would make me so sad though if it was after I lost my uterus. No,
yeah,
I'll be so traumatized and devastated by that I can't. It'd be something else.
Sorry, she has to have a C-section with every pregnancy, so
maybe we can put something else interesting where the uterus used to be. You know, like I don't know, an AI muffled speech from within my belly. I really don't know.
Yell at people like you have a baby inside you that talks. Get me out of here! Get me out of here!
Oh my god. So something like I don't know.
We'll say is, Simone, I have faith that it's not going to happen anytime soon. I believe that God's looking out for us. It's going to work out.
I hope so.
As long as we keep dedicating ourselves fully to this cause.
I hope so. Really, really hope so.
Anyway, so Borg here did one that's titled the 2024 Presidential Party Heat Map by County. The most dark red goes through the same line.
Yep, there you go. You got the MAGA pronatalists.
It is.
You're right. MAGA is vitalism. MAGA is the future is bright. MAGA is family is good. MAGA is children are awesome. That's huge.
But I also think that this is where the most vitalistic people from the backwoods cultural group eventually immigrated out to. This is the Wild West of the Wild West. This is the Wild West strip.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting.
Like every Western you've seen takes place in this strip.
I guess, yeah. Yeah.
Now here's an interesting take on this.
The agriculture? I don't see this one.
Most crops by county. So this line isn't exact, but it's where most wheat in the U.S. is grown and a bit where corn in the U.S. is grown. The problem is where the line like sort of splits apart the most and is the most large is in South Dakota. In South Dakota, you don't see a lot of this. And then you also see the line sort of expand in, God, what state is that? Nebraska. And it doesn't look like, well, yeah, you get corn farming there. Yeah, so it could be wheat farming.
Well, I just think of that gladiator scene. His hand.
Oh, he's got his hand on the wheat. That's my life already.
Yeah. You can't do that as easily with corn. So you have children of the corn, they're creepy, but you've got the sentimental dad of Gladiator running his hand over the wheat. But this is too tenuous. I want to go to the next graph. Oh,
Wind speeds?
this is where it just gets like, let's play the ridiculous data matches game. And this is why so much research is just bonkers.
No, I actually think wind speeds are at play here.
Are you kidding me? Right. So what we're looking at now, for those who are just listening, is a map of wind speeds in the United States, showing zones with the highest versus the lowest wind speeds in miles per hour. And in this fertility line, weirdly, you see much lower wind speed.
So what you're actually seeing here is what creates high wind speed. It is the last part of flat land before you get to the mountainous or desert regions. And so it's large areas of flat land before you get to mountain or desert regions, which is leading to these wind speeds. So it could be caused by the same things that taught the migrants to stop.
Interesting. Flatlands. Why would flatlands promote higher birth rates?
It's not that they promote higher birth rates. It's that these are the migrants who kept moving and moving and moving. So they were more vitalistic
people.
They were more
flatland. So vitalistic people just love flatland.
No, it's that they kept moving as far as they could where there was good land. You stop moving.
Well, why would non-vitalistic people not give up? It sounds like the place where the lazy, easy people give up. Then that doesn't.
No, the hungriest people settle in the richest possible soil. It is I think what you're confusing is people who just want to like huckster their way through lives and live on the fringes of civilization and not actually thrive, who are the ones who are squeaking by in like the Arizona deserts and stuff like that, or in the mountains of the Rockies. This is quite different than that. These are the individuals who were always looking for something better.
Maybe I'm what so far has convinced me the most is the line of religiosity and the line of MAGA. So I think that's what so far has got me. Wind speeds, I don't know.
Here's the next graph here. U.S. home affordability.
That's,
it's not as strong a correlation, but there's definitely,
not.
When you keep in mind the income of these regions, which is quite high, around 70K.
Yeah.
And this home affordability.
Yes, right. Because there was that other graph that showed that there's this line of relatively higher wealth in that area. So when you combine higher wealth with affordability, you get people who feel like they're millionaires, which would produce this feeling of abundance. And of course, the future is going to be bright because I can buy a giant house. Okay, sorry, never mind. Changing my mind, Delta. That is compelling and interesting. Yes,
but it's not that strong a connection. Now, here's one that aligns with.
No. But like when you combine the two, because the houses are here more broadly affordable than they are in like the coasts, certainly in California. And when you combine that with, especially, I think when you feel really wealthy, like remember how we felt when we were in Peru and we're like, I can just go to a restaurant. Look at me. I'm a king.
I literally would like eat at restaurants every day there because I could at the same cost as like cooking at home in the US.
Yeah.
But now cooking from home, you're better than the Peruvian restaurant. So like, doesn't even matter.
You're so sweet. But like, I think that feeling of abundance can create this. So, because you've also pointed out in other podcasts and research that there's this fertility U curve where obviously at very low levels of income and poverty, people have more kids. And then also when you see people starting to make more than $500,000, they start having more kids. And I think what might be going on here is people feel like they're making more than $500,000 because they're able to literally get everything they want.
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, if I can get everything I want, then I don't have to worry about finding another
$70,000
job.
to a family in rural America is quite a lot of money, and in terms
Yeah.
of, like, housing the kids and everything like that, you're gonna have
Yeah.
enough space and everything, so
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
good area.
Childcare, especially if you're in a religious community where maybe theoretically there's a bunch of like girls in your church community who babysit kids for like $12 an hour, as
Now,
opposed to like,
here's another interesting graph here that I
okay,
quite like. This one is from Slut Dragon.
good name.
Something strange to do with a hundredths Meridian and Rainfall. So what
What?
they're showing here is the hundredths versus the 98ths Meridian, which is around this area. And you'll notice at each of these two lines, the rainfall changes pretty dramatically.
It
You have
does.
a
Then it's
lot more.
really where that strip is on the left side of Texas.
Yes. Well, it's actually a bit past the hundredths Meridian. Remember
Mhm.
I said it's like right at the end of where you would stop when you're hitting like the issues that have to do with moving into mountainous regions.
Yeah.
So it's past the hundredths Meridian. They're sort of acting like it's between the 98ths and the hundredths, but it's really not. It's past the hundredths Meridian where rainfall has already started to decline a bit. So again, this is the furthest you can go and still claim to be hitting better, good land.
Mhm.
That's what we're seeing here, I think. Now, this one is a very interesting map from Chad Sanger. This map shows how far you have to drive to get an abortion, and it lines up exactly with this line.
Wow. So these are all districts that I guess post Dobbs, which was the Supreme Court ruling in the United States that basically gave decisions about abortion legality back to states. This is showing this strip of apparently, because it's not on a statewide basis, but districts that have made it very
No, it's
difficult
not
to get an
districts that have made
abortion.
it. It's how far do you have to drive to get out of a state or a district.
Oh,
Um,
okay, fair enough. That's why the edges look like they do. Okay.
But
Yeah, that makes sense.
the point here being is that what I think we're actually seeing here isn't that the abortions, because we know from other studies and from like Europe, like typically the stricter a country is on abortions, the lower its fertility rate is. Now,
Mhm.
this could be a false correlation created with Catholic countries being stricter on abortions and Catholics having like garbage fertility rates,
Mm.
which okay, maybe that's what we're seeing in Europe. But I actually think what we're seeing here is it's not the legality of abortions, it's the public sentiment around abortions. If you get pregnant, is your first thought, I'm going to have an abortion? Or is it, well, no one I know to would ever talk to me again? Like, this is a really horrible thing to do. Like,
Mhm.
voting happens in these districts this way because people have this sentiment.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's leading to higher fertility rates. I think it's the same thing that leads to the religiosity. I think it's the same thing that leads to the Trumpism. I think all these things are connected.
That makes sense. Very
And
interesting.
remember, I was talking about good land before, right?
Yeah.
Look at this post by Matt Popovich, which looks at acres of land in farms as a percentage of land in acres in 2007 by county. And what you'll see is this district up and down is straight up farmland compared to
Do you
other
think
places.
this may also have to do more with the corporate family? If you have a family growing up and
In
they're more
farms.
likely
Oh,
to own a
absolutely. I think
farm,
it is.
you have probably a mother and a father and extended family living together, working on the farm together, and then the kids helping out too. And suddenly, the corporate family is an inherently pronatal environment. You know, you're all leaning in together, you're spending
Explain
time
what you mean by
together.
corporate family for people who
The
don't know.
corporate family is the much like the truly trad family, which is a family where the mother, the father, children, and often extended family, plus additional workers in some cases, all live together and work together in a household, not necessarily on a farm. It could be a brewer, it could be a blacksmith, it could be any number of things. But this is what the norm was before the Industrial Revolution. And we argue that it really is when the men left the house to go work in factories that we started to see the beginnings, the wheels started turning that set up demographic collapse. It wasn't women getting empowered. It wasn't the birth control pill. By that point, the momentum was already there. We were already headed straight to the Titanic without an ability to turn away. It's just that was when they saw the iceberg and were like, oh no, that doesn't mean that it wasn't going to happen anyway. And so, yes, this is a region clearly from the various graphs that we're seeing that if there isn't going to be a place in the United States where we will see more corporate families, more husbands and wives living and working together very closely, it's going to be here. That's so interesting.
Oh, hold on. I got another one for you. And this
Okay.
aligns with my original thesis. If you scroll
Mm.
down a while, you're going to run into a light map of the US, a picture from space of the United States to see where
Ooh.
light density is.
Okay, okay.
And what you'll see is this region is right past the end of sort of
My
civilizational expansion in the
gosh.
United States.
Yes, it's where the
It's
darkness comes. Oh, and meaning romantically, they get to see like the Milky Way at night. They actually see a real night sky more likely.
right, but it's not just that. Remember how I said, like, a lot of people think, like, oh, Americans just kept immigrating forever, like
Uh-huh.
the frontier. No, there is still a frontier in the US, and it is this line. Like, the
Wow.
frontier gets pushed westwards every decade, every year. And in the US, yes, you had people like rush to the coast, for
Mhm.
example, but this is still where the American frontier is.
Gosh. And still this feeling of manifest destiny, growth, space.
Right. So these are the people who went just past the last major populated area, but
Mhm.
didn't go out seeking further unpopulated areas for the sake of further unpopulated areas.
Hmm. Very interesting.
Here is the last graph that might explain it for you if you go a bit further down than that.
Okay.
It's mostly, this is rational renaissance. It's mostly
Oh.
population density. Don't
Ooh.
overcomplicate this. People in less densely populated places have more kids.
Dan Hess is just chiming in to be like, I told you so.
Well, I would disagree because it doesn't actually map exactly. This is
No.
the first line in the US where you get a low population density, which aligns with my theory that it's about immigration patterns. It is not the last line in the US where you get low population density. Look at like Nevada, for example, or north of that, or like there's all sorts of places here. Utah is low population density where you don't have the high fertility rate.
Yeah.
So it is not about population density. It is about the first strip of migration where you get low population density.
The first strip, so just the edges of humanity, you're trying to say, just the fringes. Is that what you're
Yes.
saying? Okay. Yeah.
Ooh, what is-
I think it's what's really getting me is this zone in the United States where there's this feeling of abundance and more corporate families. So one, you feel like your dollar goes farther and you're making more. Like you're making enough to feel like you really have everything you need and you can get everything you need. And it's totally okay to have a family. Plus you're religious, plus you're MAGA and you think the future is bright. And then plus you're more likely to be surrounded by or even be a corporate family.
Maybe here's another couple maps that is interesting where you get a line that overlaps with this a lot. It's minerals.
What?
So here you have critical minerals by region, and here you have a lot of, it's the first line, not the last line, of expensive minerals in the United States.
What?
And it also explanation hardness in milligrams per liter. You get a line of
Dirty water.
valuable minerals around this area.
Oh,
It's not a perfect match, but it's something else to think about.
I don't know. I mean, stranger things have caused other strange things to happen, but I ain't seeing it here.
You ain't seeing it. Well, let's see
Mm-mm.
this. Farming dependent counties. Heavy overlap. Non-metro farming dependent counties.
More points to the corporate family theory.
I'd say more points to the corporate family theory, yes. Well, what did you think of that interesting deep dive?
That is truly fascinating. When you mentioned to me that there was a mysterious fertility strip, the linea negra, as we're calling it, I don't know. I figured it would be where the Bible Belt was, and I thought it was just going to be this open shut case of, oh, I guess religious people are still having kids.
I think
and
what
that's
we
not it.
see is that cavalier culture in the United States, the aristocratic Southern culture, is not conducive to high
Well,
fertility
that's because
rates
it's
or human
performative.
flourishing.
I mean, by our definitions, I don't think we would even call it religious.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I think it's a performative form of social conformity that is antithetical to, I think, what we would think of as real internal religion. But keep in mind, we're the type of people who, if we were traditional Christians, we'd be some form of like Calvinist Baptist or Reformed Baptist, right? Like, I don't know if I agree. Like if religiosity is about conformity to you and it's about fitting social norms, and this is why I think the iterations of conservatism in America that are being replaced by the sort of new right are dying so much, where they're like, you're acting weird, you're doing weird extreme things, you're doing whatever, like just fit in, those are the ones that are going to go extinct, because it is that mindset that is so toxic to fertility rates. I
Mhm.
actually think that this is part of what's led to a lot of Catholic fertility crash. Is a lot of Catholic culture historically was like, don't be weird, fit in, etc. It had a very similar cultural framework to the Cavalier culture,
Mhm.
which is like, just structure yourself, hierarchically, don't be weird. Social hierarchy is not based on like personal vitality, right? But is based on, like specific metrics of like, this is how you act, like you have manners. These are the
These are the
special
things you
things that you.
buy. This is the country club you're a member of. These are the people who approve of you. This is how you dress.
Yes, yes. Whereas this other cultural group has always much more focused on, instead of having religion come from above, have religion come from within.
Mhm.
And when I say above, I mean above culturally and socially speaking. Like your
Yes.
betters tell you what's true about religion, instead of you tell yourself what's true about religion. F your betters, they don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
And so that is really, really fascinating to me.
That is. Yeah. I'm I'm shocked. I really would have thought that the Bible Belt would have more. Also, because I expected to see regions that had higher immigrant populations, which I associate with a lot of coastal cities and also the South. I think they have fairly high. I wonder if I can look up a map of immigrant USA recent
Oh yeah, it could be migrant
immigrant
workers. That'd be really interesting.
population. No, I don't think it's migrants. But I just thought that where there would be more immigrants. No, but it's not. Okay, so if you look up maps of US recent immigrant population density, there's basically no overlap with this strip. So it's also not that we're talking about immigrant populations. It's just haven't
I mean,
yet been.
that's not true. There is high overlap in the southern parts of Texas and
Yeah,
the
yeah, in
eastern
the
parts
southern
of
parts of,
Texas.
yeah, but there's the whole strip is the whole point is it's the strip. It goes all the way. Because when you look at the immigrant population density maps, it's from I mean, Florida's drenched. It's like it's dipped in it, and then the base of Texas is drenched, and then of course all along the Mexican border through California, you see it's like a cookie. Like the cookie of the United States was dipped in the milk of immigration, and it's just soaked in a little bit there. But it just stays soaked in around the borders. It doesn't go all the way up the strip. And so I'm just writing that off. I'm saying it's not an immigrant thing because it would have gone all the way up the strip. You're looking for matching patterns. That's what everyone
Well,
else blames.
I found this map after we filmed this episode, but this is a map looking at immigrant versus native born fertility rates. And you can see here this dark green and green area, with dark green meaning foreign born growth overcame native loss, and light green meaning foreign born growth slowed overall population loss. And it aligns almost perfectly with the strip. So what this could mean is, what we are actually looking at here is immigrant farm laborers making up the fertility rate of the native population.
The
You're
graph
looking at
matching game did.
by county religion, and
Mhm.
you see an overlap with the eastern part of the Baptist group that's like, I guess, Baptist, but not under the Cavalier cultural group, does very well here.
Mhm.
And then a lot of Lutherans. It's not
Huh.
a perfect overlap, but and some Catholics, if you're talking about the immigrant heavy areas.
I mean, that's
The interesting, the
interesting.
Mormon areas seem to be doing really bad.
That's what's crazy, especially when it came to suicidality in
Well,
Utah.
and it's even where they expand outside of Utah. Like, I was just surprised. Like,
Yeah.
Mormons are not doing that good.
It's, yeah, it's saddening. It's saddening. But also, I personally find the landscape of Utah to be fairly oppressive. But I don't know if I would feel that differently about these flatlands across the mysterious fertility strip. So I don't know.
Well, we live in heaven out here, so that's the problem, right?
Oh my gosh, it's so amazing. But yeah, apparently people aren't having big families out here. There's too much light. Not
Well, I
enough
mean, they're not
farming.
doing that bad. If you're looking at like the Northeast, like it's
Well, and I'm sure if
really
you went and looked at Lancaster County, where there's a
yeah.
bunch of Amish, you see again, I think the same characteristics that we're highlighting here and theorizing are the driving factors of the fertility strip, which is farming families, the corporate family, religious dedication, and relatively low levels of development.
I mean, if you actually look at our county, Simone, and the county next to us, you're looking at an around 2 fertility rate.
That's pretty impressive, all things considered. But the fertility strip was getting close to 3, which is for
I
the
know,
United
I
States
know.
very impressive.
I'm just pointing out that we're not like in a bad area fertility wise,
Yeah, I hear you, and that is
especially for the
laudable.
wealth of our district, which is quite high.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you're quite right. You would expect us to, but is it just the Amish that are holding us up?
No, not our county. Montco, there's almost
Oh
no
yeah,
Amish in
right.
Montco.
Montgomery County doesn't really have. Yes. Okay.
The 2 counties I'm looking at here, the one where we bought a house, Chester County, which is actually really high fertility. I don't think they have many Amish at all, in Montco.
Okay. Wow. Good for us. We moved to a good place.
I know.
Pronatalists, you should move to Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, because it is really awesome. It really is.
It really is. It's like a spectacular place to live.
Yeah.
Anyway, love you to death, Simone. You are amazing. You are beautiful. And I am so happy to be married to you.
I love you so much. And I am excited for dinner and going to sleep. It's been a week, hasn't it?
Since we slept? Yeah, it has. Sorry, we've gone like super viral this. I don't know when this episode is going to go live, but like this has been crazy. Nothing like this has ever happened.
I think we're just tired. I can't stop yawning, but we'll just get rest and it's going to be amazing. But thank you for being you, and thanks to everyone for listening. Oh, and by the way, if you do listen, if you have an iPhone and you could give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts.
Let's see what our Apple Podcast rating is now. Do you know?
I don't, but I have a Mac. So while I can't leave us a rating, because I guess you need an iPhone to do that, I can look this up.
95 reviews now on Apple.
My God, you guys, thank you. If this is one of you who did this, who contributed one of these, thank you.
4.5.
Okay. Well, that's... Hold on, I need to see this for myself. Oh my gosh, 95. Thank you.
You're getting close to the 100 mark. 100 reviews on Apple is quite big. Because, you know, you can only do it if you have like an iPhone or something.
That's true. Yeah. Well, that is really wonderful. There's still that picture of you and Toasty with dry ice in
I think that's a good image for the podcast, to be honest.
Mixing bowl. Yeah. Toasty with his giant head. Everything else is so tiny. And he's this giant head, this little noggin. Yeah. Wow. Okay. I love you, and I am capable of getting out of this chair and moving on with the day.
I bet you are.
I'm definitely.
You're gonna go to bed soon? You're gonna get to make dinner soon?
I know, but like the things that have to happen between dinner and bed, like hauling the children up the stairs, bathing them, cleaning up after dinner.
You don't have to bathe them.
I do, to check for ticks these days. I want to make I just want to check every inch of their bodies because they're playing outside now, which is as they should because it's finally warm. And you just got a tick. So I'm not taking any chances. Like the shower period I do with each of them is like my chance to check for rashes, ticks, mosquito bites, scratches, wounds, anything
sand
else.
In the hair. You got this dumped a bunch of sand in her hair over and over again.
It'll still be there. I rinsed so many times, no matter what I did. It just kept like, how can you get that much sand in your hair? Like, I don't even know. Like it should. Anyway, I love our children, and I
love
boundless
you.
energy. Oh,
bye.
I'm hitting end. That smile all about.
Did you see the song I sent you?
Yeah, that's.
I wanted to do more like the biodiesel song.
Yeah. You need that Broadway flair for sure.
That Broadway villain
energy, very necessary.
I slink through the night with a sneer and a plan. My lineage will bury the woke's shallow clan. Their cities of glass built on ego and lies will crack neath the weight of my heirs' battle cries. Hail to my triumph, my vitalist throne. I'll see the new world with my blood and my bone. The woke's brittle culture will crumble and wane, while my primal vigor ignites the new reign. The past fuels my fire, its debts I'll repay, with children who carve out a glorious new day. The urbanites preen in their mirror disguise, but I'll torch their vain spark with the truth in my eyes. Hail to my triumph, my vitalist throne. I'll see the new world with my blood and my bone. The woke's brittle culture will crumble and wane, while my primal vigor ignites the new reign. My offspring will surge like a flood through their streets. Their strength will unravel the woke's frail defeats. Their bonfire of selfies, so feeble, so thin, will choke in the smoke of my ultimate win. Hail to my triumph, my vitalist throne. I'll see the new world with my blood and my bone. The woke's brittle culture will crumble and wane, while my primal vigor ignites the new reign. So cower, you fools, as my dynasty looms. Your trivial fads will be swept to their tombs. My vitalist glory, unstoppable grand, will forge a new era with life's iron hand.